She handed him the envelope with the DNA test, and then everything stopped. His bride went pale. The groom's jaw tightened. No one moved. Before we dive in, have you ever faced a moment where everything you thought you knew fell apart in an instant? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe that love always finds a way, hit that subscribe button. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. We meet Nathaniel Carrington, a self-made billionaire. He's the kind of man who walks into a room, and everything shifts. Handsome, confident, impeccably dressed, and everything about him screams success. He's at the height of his life, marrying the beautiful and well-regarded Catherine, his perfect match, or so it seems. Nathaniel stands at the altar in a luxurious, well-decorated venue, marble floors, chandeliers overhead, with hundreds of guests watching. His life looks flawless, just like his suit. But underneath the surface, there's tension. There's something nagging him, something about this day that feels off. His hand trembles as he adjusts the cufflinks his father gave him before he died, an heirloom. For a second, the weight of the legacy feels heavier than the gold they're sitting on. But he pushes it aside. Today's about Catherine. About love. About perfection. Catherine is a stunning vision in white, her smile radiant as she walks down the aisle, the perfect image of a bride. But her eyes, there's something behind them, a flicker of uncertainty. She's always been a woman of grace, but deep down, she has always known something wasn't quite right in her life. She's been swept up in the fantasy of marrying a man who can give her everything she ever wanted. She catches Nathaniel's eye, and for a split second, something shifts between them. She knows what this moment is, what they've both built together. But she also knows she's been ignoring something. A fear. A doubt. She swallows it down, replacing it with a smile as she reaches Nathaniel at the altar. The ceremony continues. Guests are on edge, the air heavy with anticipation. The officiant begins speaking, but as he gestures to the maid of honor, a young waitress walks up to Nathaniel with an envelope in hand. She's dressed in black, the uniform fitting her tight. There's no introduction. No words spoken. She simply hands him the envelope. Nathaniel's hand shakes as he takes it. It's a simple white envelope with no label, but the moment his fingers brush against it, something feels wrong. Catherine notices it too. She sees the change in Nathaniel's expression. The way his face hardens, how his posture stiffens as if bracing for something, tears open the envelope, eyes scanning the contents. As he reads the DNA test results, his face goes pale. He looks up at Catherine, his gaze sharp and conflicted. The silence was deafening, and Catherine could feel the world slip from beneath her. The truth was about to come crashing in, one piece at a time. The room was eerily quiet, like time had stopped. The guests, once smiling and whispering in excitement, were now frozen in place. Catherine's heart thudded in her chest, her breath shallow as she watched Nathaniel. His face had gone from shock to stone, his jaw tight. The DNA test results in his hands seemed like a physical weight, pulling him down. But what could he possibly have read that had made him freeze like this? Catherine felt her stomach twist into knots. She knew something was off. She had felt it in her bones when Nathaniel first stepped in front of her today. But this? This was more than anything she could have imagined. Nathaniel. Her voice trembled, barely above a whisper. What's going on? He didn't respond. His gaze didn't move from the paper in his hands. He was lost in it. The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly, shifting his weight from foot to foot. He didn't know what to do. No one did. The wedding had been turned on its head in an instant. Nathaniel's eyes finally met Catherine's. There was no warmth in his gaze, only cold disbelief. Slowly, he handed her the envelope. "Read it for yourself," he said, his voice low but sharp. Catherine hesitated. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the paper. She could feel the heat of the room, the hundreds of eyes on them, the hush that had fallen like a heavy blanket. The grand chandelier above them seemed to dim, casting long shadows across the space. She unfolded the paper with slow, deliberate movements, her heart racing. And as she read the results, her world began to unravel. The words on the page didn't make sense at first. But then, the truth hit her. The DNA test wasn't just about Nathaniel. It was about her, about the child she was carrying. Her eyes shot up to Nathaniel, wide with shock. "What does this mean?" she whispered, but her voice was breaking. Nathaniel stepped back, his hand gripping the back of a nearby chair for support. "It's not mine," he said, the words cold, like he'd been doused in ice water. His eyes were raw, vulnerable in a way Catherine had never seen before. "This baby isn't mine." Catherine's chest tightened. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but the words wouldn't come. The truth hung between them, thick and suffocating. For a moment, the only sound was the beating of her own heart. She looked around at the stunned faces of the guests. Some were whispering, others were trying to hide their shock. It felt like the walls were closing in. This couldn't be happening. Not today. Not now. But the test didn't lie. Catherine turned away, unable to look him in the eye any longer. She walked to the side of the room, away from the altar. She had no idea where she was going. She didn't even know what she was doing. She needed space. She needed to breathe. "Catherine, please," Nathaniel called after her, his voice breaking. He was still holding the envelope, his knuckles white with the pressure of gripping it so tightly. "I need you to tell me the truth. Was there someone else?" She stopped in her tracks, her back to him. I didn't want this. I never wanted this." Her voice cracked as she spoke, and she pressed her palms to her face, trying to hold it together. "I made a mistake, okay? I never meant for this to happen." Her words hung in the air. The room felt like it was closing in on her, the walls tightening, pushing her toward a corner she couldn't escape. Nathaniel's face was a mask of hurt and disbelief, but it was more than that. There was anger there too. He had trusted her. And now everything was crumbling. "I need to understand, Catherine," Nathaniel said, his voice low but firm. "Who is it? Who is the father?" Catherine turned to face him, her eyes full of sorrow. "It was a mistake. A one-time thing. It doesn't mean anything." "It was nothing," she stammered, but her voice faltered as soon as she said it. She wasn't sure she believed it herself anymore. Nathaniel's lips tightened, and he shook his head slowly, the weight of everything between them growing heavier. "A mistake? You call this a mistake?" He was losing control, and the cracks in his composure were starting to show. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I don't know how to fix this." As Catherine stood there, desperately trying to gather her thoughts, Nathaniel stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "You want to fix this? Then tell me the truth. Every single part of it." Catherine's chest tightened as she stood face to face with Nathaniel. She could see the hurt in his eyes, but she could also see the betrayal. The gulf between them felt like an ocean now. There was no going back. Not after this. But Catherine couldn't speak. She couldn't bring herself to confess everything. Not now. Not in front of everyone. As the silence stretched on, she looked toward the door, toward the escape she couldn't take. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere left to hide. The truth had finally caught up with her. The hardest truth is the one you can never take back. And as Catherine stood there, the hardest decision of her life loomed large. Would she face the wreckage she had caused, or walk away from it all? Catherine stood by the window, her hands pressed flat against the cold glass. The night outside was still, the lights of the city twinkling in the distance. But inside, everything was chaos. Nathaniel's words echoed in her mind, his voice sharp and broken. "Tell me the truth." She couldn't. She wasn't ready to tell him. Not yet. But the weight of the silence between them was unbearable. She felt like she was suffocating. Every breath seemed to draw in more regret. She had done this. She had brought them both here. She had been the one to keep the secret, and now it was unraveling everything. Nathaniel paced in the other room, his hands running through his hair, his mind racing. He was angry, hurt, but most of all, he was confused. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had built his life on control, on knowing exactly where he stood. But now? Everything was slipping through his fingers. He needed answers. He needed to understand how they had gotten here. He stepped toward Catherine, his voice tight with frustration. "I can't do this, Catherine. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay." She didn't look at him. Her eyes were focused on the city lights outside, but he could see the tears in her reflection. The hurt was there. He could feel it, too. "Catherine, please." He was losing his patience. "Tell me what's going on. Who is the father?" Her shoulders tensed, and for a moment, Nathaniel thought she might break. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Catherine turned away from the window, finally meeting his gaze. It was never supposed to happen, Nathaniel. I swear to you. Her voice was low, fragile. I didn't mean for this to. Then why didn't you tell me? His voice was louder now, filled with a mix of anger and disbelief. Why keep it from me? She lowered her eyes, guilt washing over her like a heavy tide. Because I thought I could fix it. I thought it would go away if I just ignored it. I didn't want to lose everything, lose you. Nathaniel's heart twisted. He was angry, but there was something else there too. His anger was a shield, a way to protect himself from the truth, from the hurt he didn't want to face. But the pain was already there. And no matter how many walls he built, it wouldn't go away. I loved you, he said softly, almost to himself. I trusted you. Catherine's face crumpled at his words. She could feel the distance growing between them. She had never wanted to hurt him, but now she had, and it felt like there was no coming back. The tension in the room was suffocating, and the silence between them was worse than any fight. Catherine could feel her chest tightening, her breaths shallow. She had wanted to protect him. She had wanted to protect their life, the dream they'd built together. But now it was all crashing down. Nathaniel's eyes softened, just for a moment. He stepped toward her, his voice quieter now. Was it someone I know? Catherine flinched. The question was a knife to her chest. She hadn't wanted him to know. She didn't want him to feel betrayed. But how could she hide it now? It was, she paused, her throat tight. It was someone from my past. Someone I thought was gone. But then, it wasn't. The words hung in the air between them. Nathaniel's face twisted, like he was trying to process what she was saying. The pieces weren't fitting. Nothing made sense. You didn't think to tell me this before? He asked, his voice steady but filled with hurt. She shook her head, eyes downcast. I was scared. I thought it was a mistake that would fade. I didn't want to lose what we had. Nathaniel stepped back, running a hand over his face. He felt like his whole world had been turned upside down. Every trust, every piece of their relationship felt like it had been built on a lie. This is too much, he muttered under his breath. Too much to just forget. Catherine's heart sank. She couldn't blame him. She couldn't blame him for feeling like everything he knew had been shattered. She had kept secrets, and now it was too late to undo them. I never meant for this to happen, she whispered, tears rolling down her face. I didn't want to lose you. Nathaniel's eyes closed for a moment, his hand gripping the edge of the table. The weight of the situation was crashing down on him. He had trusted her, loved her, and now it was all slipping away. But just before he spoke, something in him shifted. The pain was real, yes. The betrayal was real. But there was something deeper. Something he wasn't ready to let go of. Tell me everything, he said, his voice softer now. I need to know the truth. All of it. Catherine nodded slowly. She couldn't take back what had happened, but she could tell him the truth. The whole truth. The one thing she owed him, even if it destroyed everything. Catherine took a deep breath, steeling herself. This was the moment. She had to come clean. No more hiding, no more pretending. The truth was all that was left. Nathaniel was waiting for her. His eyes were filled with something unreadable, a mix of hurt, confusion, and maybe even hope. But whatever it wasn't enough to save them. Not yet. She stepped toward him, the weight of her words heavier than ever. Nathaniel, In that moment, everything changed. But the question wasn't just about the baby, or the mistake. It was about whether they could rebuild a life after it all came crashing down. Was love enough to survive the truth? The next morning, the weight of the previous night hung heavy in the air. The sun was trying to break through the clouds, but the room felt cold and distant. Nathaniel stood by the window, looking out at the skyline of the city, his back to Catherine. He hadn't said much since she'd left the room last night, and the silence between them had stretched thin. Catherine sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. She couldn't bring herself to look at him. The pain of seeing his eyes, full of hurt, betrayal, and confusion, was too much. She'd already broken him. She couldn't break him any further. You're still here, Catherine finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her words felt like an admission of guilt, as if she was waiting for him to leave, to end everything. But she couldn't make him go. She couldn't bear to see him walk away. Nathaniel didn't answer right away. He just stood there, his silhouette framed by the light filtering in through the window. The distance between them felt insurmountable, like an ocean had opened up between them overnight. "I don't know what I expected," he said finally, his voice low. "But it wasn't this. Not from you. Not from us." Catherine's throat tightened. "I never wanted this. I never meant for any of it to happen." "Then why didn't you tell me?" Nathaniel's words cut through her like a knife. "Why keep hiding everything? If we're supposed to have a life together, then why keep secrets?" She bit her lip, struggling to keep her emotions in check. "Because I was scared," she whispered. "I was scared of losing everything." Nathaniel turned to face her, his eyes dark and unreadable. "You've already lost it all. We've lost it all." The truth of his words hit her like a slap. It was true. Everything they had built, the trust, the love, the life, had been built on a lie. A lie that she had kept buried for so long. "I never wanted to hurt you," Catherine said, her voice breaking. "But I couldn't see a way out. And now everything is broken." The silence stretched again, thick and suffocating. Neither of them knew what to say next, and yet there was so much to say. So many things left unsaid, so many things they had both been running from. But in this moment, it didn't matter. Nathaniel stepped closer to her, his face softening just slightly. "You don't get it, do you?" His voice was quieter now, almost gentler. "It's not just about the baby, Catherine. It's about trust. It's about us. The life we've built. And now it feels like none of it was real." Catherine swallowed hard, trying to hold herself together. "It was real. What we had, that was real." "But you kept a part of yourself from me," Nathaniel said, shaking his head. "A part of you that was supposed to be mine." She closed her eyes, guilt rushing over her. She had never wanted to shut him out. But she had. She had kept something so important hidden from him, and now there was no going back. The tension between them was unbearable. Catherine's heart felt like it was breaking all over again. She wanted to fix it, wanted to make it right, but she didn't know how. She had made too many mistakes. She had lied, kept secrets, and now everything was falling apart. Nathaniel's eyes searched hers, looking for something, an answer, a sign that this could still work. But he didn't find it. "I don't know what to do with this anymore," he said, his voice full of defeat. Catherine could barely hold back her tears. She had never seen him like this. She had never seen him so vulnerable, so broken. It was like everything that had once been so strong between them had been reduced to dust. "You have every right to walk away," she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. "I don't blame you if you do." He didn't answer right away. He just stood there, torn between the love he still had for her and the betrayal that had shattered him. Catherine could see the battle in his eyes, the war between love and hurt. She thought she'd lost him. But there was still a chance, maybe the smallest one, to fix it. But the clock was ticking, and neither of them knew if love could heal the wound she had made. "I don't know what we're supposed to do now," Catherine whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't know how to make this right." Nathaniel's eyes were distant, as if he was already preparing himself to walk away. And maybe that was what needed to happen. Maybe walking away was the only way forward. But there was still something between them, something that neither of them could ignore. The question lingered in the air, unanswered. Could they ever fix what had been broken? Or was it too late? It was a moment of truth. A choice. One last chance to either walk away, or to stay and rebuild the pieces. The next step could change everything, but neither of them knew if they were strong enough to take it. The days that followed were a blur. The city continued on, unaware of the storm that had broken between Nathaniel and Catherine. The world felt quieter now, distant, like the sound of a thunderstorm fading after the worst of the storm had passed. Catherine stood by the window, staring out at the quiet street below. The sun had set, casting an orange glow over everything. It was a new day, but she still wasn't sure what that day would mean. She was waiting for something, an answer, a sign. But mostly, she was waiting for Nathaniel to decide what was left of them. The phone buzzed on the table. Catherine's heart skipped a beat. She knew it was him. She always knew when it was him. The message was short. Can we talk? Her breath hitched in her throat. A part of her wanted to say no, to let it all go. To pretend like it wasn't happening, to move on with her life without the pain of facing it all again. But another part of her, the part that still loved him deeply, wanted to say yes. To try again. To fix what had been broken, even if she wasn't sure how. She stood there for a long moment, the phone clutched in her hand. Finally, she typed. Where? The reply came instantly. Meet me at the park. The one where we first met. Catherine arrived early. The park was quiet, the trees casting long shadows over the path. It was peaceful, but it wasn't the same. It didn't feel like their park anymore. It didn't feel like the place where they had first kissed, where they had first talked about their future together. She waited on the bench, trying to steady her breath. The cool night air brushed her face, and the distant sound of crickets filled the silence. Minutes later, Nathaniel appeared. He looked the same, but different. His posture was stiff, his face set in a way that told her he was still processing, still unsure of everything. When he saw her, he paused for a moment. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them knew how to begin. The weight of everything between them was too heavy, too raw. Finally, Nathaniel took a deep breath. I'm not sure what I'm doing, Catherine, he said, his voice low. I don't know if I can forgive you. Catherine's heart sank. But she didn't interrupt. She couldn't. I don't blame you for that, she whispered. I've hurt you and I know that. Nathaniel sat down next to her on the bench, keeping a careful distance. He ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts still scattered. But I can't just pretend like nothing happened. Like you didn't hide this from me. That's not who I am. It's not who we are. Catherine nodded. She understood. I can't change the past, Catherine said softly, turning toward him. I can't take back the things I did. But I can promise you this, I never meant to hurt you. And I would do anything to make this right. There was a long silence between them, a space where words felt inadequate, where the weight of their past was still too heavy. But in that silence, something shifted. A small crack appeared in the wall between them. Nathaniel looked at her, his eyes searching for something, perhaps the truth, perhaps the spark they once had. He still didn't know if he could forgive her, but the hurt, the anger, those things were fading. Slowly, but they were fading. I don't know if I can forgive you right now, Nathaniel said, his voice filled with uncertainty. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see if we can start over. If we can find a way to move forward. Catherine felt something inside of her loosen. She wanted to believe it, wanted to believe in him, in them. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The night felt quieter now. The stars overhead seemed brighter. For the first time in days, Catherine felt like there was hope. A small flicker of light in the darkness. They sat there together, in the park where it all began, not speaking. No promises, no guarantees. Just the quiet understanding that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way back to each other. That love, despite everything, might still have a chance. The only sound was the soft rustle of leaves in the trees, the steady rhythm of their breathing as they sat side by side. There was so much they still needed to figure out. But for the first time in a long while, they were together. And for Catherine, that was enough. As they stood to leave, Nathaniel turned to her, his hand brushing hers for the briefest of moments. We've still got a long way to go, he said, his voice low. But I'm willing to take that step with you. If you're willing too. Catherine looked up at him, her heart full of uncertainty but also something else, hope. The kind of hope that had almost been lost. Maybe love wasn't enough to fix everything. But it was a start. And sometimes, that's all you need. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.